Hi, my name is Miss C, and I am a kindergarten through third grade art teacher with the St. Tammany Parish School District. So this is lesson 2 that we're beginning today. Last week I introduced the elements of art, and if you remember, we compared that to the alphabet, and we learned how art is just another form of communication, just like learning to write, and then when you go on to write stories or poems or other things, that's a form of communication. So just like when you learn the alphabet through a song, we are learning the elements of art through a song. So last week we learned how to sing color, line, shape and space, texture, value, form. Oh, what fun it is to learn the elements of art. And that will help us to remember those 7 elements. So we're going to focus today on introducing the element of art called lines. So looking at our goal for today, at the end of today's lesson, I want you to be able to say, I can find and name different types of lines. I can make guesses why I think the artist used those lines. I can create a piece of artwork using different types of lines. So that's our goal for today, and we're going to look at 5 pieces of artwork today and see if we can create some adjectives, which are words that describe or tell about something. We're going to see if we can create a list of words which describe some of the words in the paintings that I'm going to show you. So if we start with this one by Pete Mondrian, composition in red, blue, and yellow. I want you to take a pencil and a piece of paper and think about the lines that you see here, and think about what could you call this line right here, and I want you to write it down, and I'm going to be writing it down also. And what do you do if you don't know how to write the word? One thing you can do is to draw a picture of it. What do you want? How do you want to describe that word? This line. Maybe you want to draw a picture of that line, and then in your mind you can think it was black, it was kind of thick, it was straight, and then look at this line right here. How would you describe this line? And write that down, or just draw a picture of it to remind you of the line that you saw. And then let's look at this painting called Blaze by Bridget Riley. How would you describe the lines she uses? Write that word down, or you can just draw a picture of that kind of line, and then think of the words you would use to describe it. Okay. And now think about too, do you think Mondrian, when he made his lines, that he was trying to communicate the same idea that Bridget Riley was trying to communicate? Do you think they had the same intention or purpose? Think about that question. So now I'm going to show you the 3 words that I thought of. When I saw this line, I described it as vertical. If that's the same word you use, you can put a check mark. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, because you might have described it as black, or you might have described it as thick. Those are all still correct answers. This line, I described it as horizontal. These are directional words, and that's okay if you chose a different word. And then this line, I described as zigzag, which is my word for when it goes up and down and up and down. You might have called it a mountain line or some other name. That's okay too. And of course, here's horizontal, here's my vertical. So we're going to practice creating a list of words which describe different types of lines, or you can draw different types of lines. But what I want you to do is to make a list, and you're going to make as many on that list as you can in 20 seconds. So I'm going to show you a piece of artwork, and that will help you to think of some adjectives like we just did, vertical, or you might write black, or you might write thick or horizontal or straight. So get your pencil ready. On your mark, get set, start writing. And I'm just going to put different paintings in front of you that might help you to get some ideas as you write your words. And I'm also going to be writing a list of words. All right. A painting by Keith Haring. What kind of lines do you see? You can draw examples. You can write the words that describe the kind of lines you see. This is called Blue Drawing by Lillian Porter. How would you describe that line? How would you describe this line and these? And I saved Harlequin's Carnival for last because there's so many different kinds of lines in this one. Even hold it a little bit closer so you can see. How would you describe this line and this? All right, and then stop there. And I'm going to show you my list. And if any of these words match on your list, go ahead and put a check mark and we'll know how many we came up with that were alike. So of course I had the three I started with: vertical, horizontal, zigzag. Then I saw some bold lines, and I saw some curvy lines. These were in the Keith Haring. I saw some curvy ones. In Moreau's, I saw some diagonal lines. Also in Moreau's, I saw some really thick lines. It was almost like they were outlined and then filled in, and so they made really, really fat lines. I saw some really thin lines. Some scribbly lines. Remember Blue Drawing? Of course, we saw lots of straight lines. And also with Keith Haring, I saw he had outlines. Looked like he had outlines of people. And I saw some curly lines. And then I saw some organic lines, which are the kind you think of in nature. They're very curvy. If you think about it, very few lines in nature are really straight, so we call these organic. So these are the ones that I thought of. Did any of the ones I thought of match some of the ones you thought of? All right, I'm going to use my list now to help me make a drawing of lines. So I'm going to put my paper here, and here I've got my list off to the side, and I want you to do the same. You can use a pencil, or if you have some crayons, you can use some crayons. You can use basically anything, chalk or oil pastels or colored pencils, markers, anything you want. So I think I will try, since I've got some crayons here, and I'm just going to start drawing some of these lines that are on my list. Like I might draw a vertical line, and then I might make a horizontal line over here, and let's make a zigzag line. You can tell it's starting to become very abstract, a bold line. Where do I want to put maybe a bold line, like a big piece of lightning coming in? So I'm going to make this really bold. All right, and then I can do some curvy. Maybe I want to start thinking about connecting some of these lines. Let's see, a scribbly line. Of course, you can do it other places too. It doesn't have to be just one. Straight line. So maybe I want to make a straight line next to this other one and create parallel lines, which means they're all pretty much exactly the same distance apart right here as it is right here. Some interesting parallel lines. So when you do this, it's kind of like warming up for a race. You're just practicing. You were getting ready to have a race and you stood on the sidelines and you stretched and you, maybe an organic one right here, and you stretched and you ran a short distance. You're just practicing, you're getting ready to run the big race. So we don't have to worry too much about what our piece of artwork is going to look like at the end. We're just practicing and exercising. I might even come back and outline this big bold line. See what happens then. Okay. So once you finish drawing your drawing with lines, you can look back over your list and see, is there anything you missed? Or maybe you can look around your room at home and see, are there some other lines that you see? Maybe the news is on and they're talking about tornadoes, and that makes you think, oh, I think I want to try a tornado line. They're big and then they get really small as you go down. Maybe I want to connect it over to this one and maybe see what happens when I connect that, and just play with it. All right, so basically you're just pausing, you're looking at your work, assessing, do you like it? When it's finished, and I think I'll call mine finished here because I checked against my list and there were none still on the list that I hadn't put here. I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my goal. Yes, we did that when we made the checklist. Can I make guesses why I think the artist used those lines? I really haven't done that, so let's go back. Why do I think Mondrian might have been using these lines? What was he trying to communicate with that? And so I have to think, what do they look like to me? And when I see this, and I know something about Piet Mondrian, I know he lived in New York City for a while. I know that he was interested in the geometry of the city. So I start thinking about maybe these are roads and buildings. And so that's why he was using these really straight geometric lines. And why do I think Keith Haring was using these little curvy lines here? Well, that's pretty easy to guess, right? Doesn't it look like every one of those people are wiggling and just about ready to fall down? Imagine this painting without those little curvy lines. They would look like they were frozen in space instead of moving. And speaking of moving, do any of these lines seem to move to you? So this artist, her purpose was to create probably an optical illusion. All right, so now, yes, I made some guesses. Did I create a piece of artwork using different types of lines? And yes, I did. So we accomplished our goals today, and now we want to think about how can we extend our lesson. So I'm going to take my piece of artwork that I made, and one thing you can do is to create some interesting shapes in here. So I have one right here. Maybe I want to create some shapes inside of shapes and just see what happens when I do that. And then I can add other colors as well. Or maybe I want to take some paint and just wash over this and see what happens to my painting when I do that. So these are just fun extensions you can try. And what we were creating here is actually a resist painting. The oil of the crayon is resisting the paint. All right, so that's a fun way that you can extend your project. So until next time, I will see you later, and in our next lesson, lesson 3, we'll continue to talk about an unusual type of line. So until then, see you next time.